Okay, and welcome to the fifth episode of the Zobin Whiteboard Show. And I'm calling this the game of life. And it's really a metaphor for simply the roles that each of us play in this game of life. Whatever you think life is, whatever your perception of reality is, we're in it, and we play different roles as individuals. If I were to keep this using the Dewey Decimal System, and again, get out your logbooks for that, I'd actually score it as 302.5, which would be the relation of the individual to society. And, it's in truth, we probably, like Shakespeare says, we kind of play multiple roles. It's not just that we're any one thing within the culture. A lot of times we're many things. But I thought using the metaphor of a sports, not the game itself, but the structure of sports, I think really kind of illustrates the various roles that each of us is kind of almost fated or destined to play. So let's take a look at that and see what we. Oh, by the way, these are two gag Christmas presents that the Zobin kids gave to our parents. We used to go to Deegan and buy these things. We thought this one was cute. It says, "You asked for a half a cup of coffee," and then of course it's just kind of a half of a mug. And then this next one, we didn't know what it meant clearly, but it says, "I'm a horny little devil," and we bought that thinking it was just because he had the horn. So I mean, when you're a kid, that's what you think it is. And then my mom and dad got that, and they started laughing, of course. And we didn't we didn't know what we were doing clearly. Also, I got a message saying that they felt that the show needed more excitement, and so I'm not exactly sure what that meant, but I think what it means is that I am supposed to take an egg and then crack that on my face, maybe even a second one, and then put on a plastic helmet, and that will make it a little more exciting. So I hope that makes the show a little more exciting. And if we take the shells and we maybe put those over mind's eye, then maybe that will add some excitement to the proceedings. At least I hope so. Anyway, let's get on with the program. And so if we take a look at the various roles, I think a good place to start is, are you an executive? And I think like an executive role would be, are you kind of like an owner? Are you a general manager? Are you somebody who kind of is a power broker within this game of life? Could mean that you own your own business, but it could mean that you are a really, not just maybe a small business, but a big one. You're a big time player if you're like more of an executive in your soul. General manager, again, would be somebody who's really a mover and shaker, somebody that's really got a lot of power, probably a lot of wealth, a lot of prestige. And so there's definitely people who are part of the game, and that is part certainly of a team or a sport, are the people that are at that level of it. And then how about the roles that take place in the press box? Okay, and this is one that's kind of near and dear to me. My dad was a journalism professor, and I think I inherited a lot of kind of that sensibility. This could mean anything from the public address announcer that's at the game, kind of giving the updates, down and distance, or something to keep the people informed, at the actual sporting event itself. It could be the broadcasters, the people that are in the radio booth, or the ones that are doing the television, the broadcasting that's kind of the game itself. And then there'd be the reporters who are there, who are simply maybe writing the story for a newspaper or for a website or something like that. And you in many cases you are kind of a big part of the game, and in some cases say somebody like Howard Cosell, who was a very famous sports broadcaster. He himself became a star in his own right. So there's plenty of opportunities to kind of feel like while you're not on the field playing, you are definitely can be a very big part of that. In the stands, there's no question. Just the folks that are in the stands is another major role of this, and probably the biggest one by sheer volume is your role that of a fan. And there's nothing wrong with that. And to a certain extent, we all are, I think. But if you're a fan, you're more of an observer, perhaps a voyeur. You are a consumer. You're kind of watching life. You're in it, of course. You're a part of it. But I think in many respects, you're also more content, or maybe more fated or destined, or maybe just out of timidity, you just kind of find it easier to watch and consume what's going on in the world. Not just in sports, but in politics and in just life world events that are going on. But then within the role of fan, are you the kind of fan that's going to be very polite, that's going to sit there, cheer for your team, never boo the opponent? Or are you going to be that lunatic fan that really is a fanatic, that is going to be very loud, very aggressive? You're going to be the kind of fan that's going to take your shirt off when it's 10 below zero and paint something on your chest just to really let people know that you are distinguishing yourself. So even though you're a fan and you're watching, you still kind of want people to know that you're there, right? Other roles within the stands themselves would be things like, are you an usher? Are you somebody that kind of helps people to their seats so they can watch reality go by? Are you a vendor that's selling, peanuts and Cracker Jack, and that you're hawking on a very small sense, not at an executive level where you're owning the Cracker Jack, but you are selling it and making a little bit of money and trying to pander to the people who are content to watch reality rather than necessarily be actively involved in it. Then there'd be roles that kind of take place kind of in the guts of the stadium, kind of, in the stadium itself. And that would be probably those less glamorous jobs, being like a locker room attendant in life, a janitor, a laundry person, maybe the people that come out and paint the lines, on the field. Very, in a way you are part of things, but you're kind of part of that cleanup crew or part of that setup crew that allows other people to engage in reality. And then I think there are things that are happening on the field itself. And this is where I think it gets pretty interesting, because there's a lot of different roles that are going by. Here's another egg on my face, just in case you're losing interest here with the societal roles. And this is part of the societal role that I play, I think. We'll get to that in a second. I need to put on my glasses, lower my voice a little bit. So roles that would happen on the field would be something like maybe a security guard, maybe a sideline reporter, which is a little different than what's going on in the press box, but it's related. But usually the sideline reporter is maybe going to talk to the players, during the game or during halftime, things like that. The referees. And the referees certainly would almost represent maybe our judicial system. They certainly would represent like our police system. How about the coaches? Are you, and if you are a coach, are you a head coach? Are you an assistant coach? This kind of represents our education system. Are you a teacher, in that sense? Cheerleaders, that are really pumping up not only the players, but really pumping up the fans to keep us interested in watching other people experience reality because we're too scared to experience it ourselves. Mascots, which is something that I am keenly familiar with because of my role as the Montreal Expo robot. Thank you very much. And you can kind of see the Montreal Expo pennant up there. You can see Any Which Way You Can with Clint Eastwood and Clyde, Dolly Parton, and David Bowie, Man Who Fell to Earth. And of course, then my little friend here, the Horseman Squalling Baby, who will get an episode of his own at some point. And at some point, the zucchini will come into play too. At any rate, eggshell. He had an eggshell complexion. He was most complex. But certainly the role of the mascot, I think to kind of pump people up, and the mascot is kind of part of the action, giving high fives to the players. You're in the game, but you're kind of limited to being a clown. And then how about being a player? How about being a player in the game of life? Is that even a possibility? Does that shock you? And if you are a player, what's your position? Are you a quarterback? Are you a high profile? Are you a punter? Are you an offensive lineman, kind of a grunt? You're in the game, you're a player. Are you a starter? Are you a backup? If you're a starter, are you a star? Or are you kind of bad? Do you suck? So even being a player in the game, there's all kinds of roles of hierarchy and status within that. Who am I? That's a good question. I think in many respects, I feel at least how I kind of scorekeep myself is I would say how I'm kind of a combination of a broadcaster or an announcer, that I feel like I'm kind of commenting on things that are happening in my reality, yes, but also maybe the broader reality. So whether it's doing the Whiteboard show or like literally being an announcer for tractor pulls or, just kind of game nights playing Rebound, things like that. I slide very comfortably into that role of a broadcaster or an announcer. I enjoy it, actually. Definitely I'm a mascot. It's not just the Expo robot. This goes back to when I was in high school, being the first mascot at my high school. Also, I've done things for the Humane Society where it didn't take much to get me into an animal costume, and then, was a roller derby mascot and People's Food Co-op. I was a banana for that. So it's very easy for me to slide into kind of that clown and entertainer role. I think the broadcaster announcer is informative, but it's also entertainment. Maybe not so much the yucks and the laughter, but more, but entertainment nonetheless. And I think I am a player, okay? But I think I'm kind of a weird player, I feel like I am in the game, but I think I'm kind of relegated to a strange role on the team. My position would be probably tight end, and I'm going to come in, I'm going to do some blocking sometimes, I'm going to, catch some balls, but I'm probably not going to be like a Rob Gronkowski or a Mike Ditka or kind of a, necessarily like a Hall of Fame tight end, but rather somebody, that, gets the job done, but kind of almost does it, is underappreciated, in many respects. But I guess I would think of myself as kind of like an Ernest Wilford, kind of a tight end from the Jacksonville Jaguars who was a converted wide receiver to a tight end, which is kind of how I feel. Maybe once upon a time I saw myself as a wide receiver and then moving into a tight end. So anyway, folks, the game of life. I think identify who you are within this crazy adventure that we're on. Are you a player, or are you kind of an executive, calling the shots? Are you on the field? Are you a star player? Do you want to be a star player? If you're sitting there watching this game and you're thinking, man, I want to get in the game, well, figure out a way to get in, and one way to get in would be to come in through the mascot door. It's not a bad door. But I think we all want to be the star quarterback to a certain extent, and maybe there's not enough room for everybody to be that role. And the truth is, we do need people in the stands, cheering and kind of observing. I think that's important, but at the same time, you don't want to feel like you're anonymous or that your life somehow didn't matter. You kind of feel like the players or the power brokers, or even the broadcasters, kind of the sexier positions that are getting seen and noticed and documented and observed are the ones that you kind of want. But I guess other people wouldn't feel that way. They would kind of see it as, hey, I want to just kind of live my life, kind of enjoy what's going on, and that's fine too. I mean, you have to be who you are. But anyway, that is the show for today, and there will be plenty more to come. That's the plan. We'll see you next time on the Zobin Whiteboard Show.